I was born Liberty, Utah, December 30th, 1915, in a two-room house built by my father. Attending my mother was Dr. Shields and a midwife. Also born in this house were Delta and Jimmy, who was really named Orland Rex. Dad was one who could easily pin a nickname on some folks, at least the boys in our family. I was christened Ross D, but I soon came to be known as Little Bud. The nickname stuck, as most people call me now. Wendell came to be known as Dick. Avon Lavoie was known as Densky. Clifford K. as Slim, and Carl Melvin as Cotton. At about 1919, we moved to an old house, now torn down, across the street from Mother's present home. There all the rest of us children were raised. However, I think that Delta, Jim, and I were the only ones born out of a hospital. One friend my age was Norris Shaw. We called him Bucko. Grandpa had 250 acres when I was a teenager. In February 1937, I went on a mission to the Central States. I remember playing a practical joke on my companion in an old chicken coop. I creamed him real good. When I left on my mission, Clifford was the youngest brother. When I returned home, I recall my little brother Carl was a baby. In March 1940, I married Ruth Priest. We made our first home in an apartment in Magna, Utah, when the Utah Copper Company owned the town. This later became Kennecott. I worked for the Kennecott Company store and theater and earned $14 a month. Sandy was born in St. Mark's Hospital. We moved to Liberty, where two apartments were made from the old company store. Delta and Jake lived in the other side from us. Danny and Susie were born in the D Hospital in Ogden. I helped Dad on the farm and worked at Hillfield and Supply during the war years. I always regret not going to fight because I believe I would have been a hell of a Jap killer. During this time, there was a terrible flu epidemic which killed more people than the war did. I was about 3 or 4 years old. Grandpa Holmes got it real bad, but survived. I remember spending time with an old buddy, William Southwick, pheasant hunting. He was old enough to be my grandpa, but we were good friends. I was 18 or 19, and he was 70 or 75. He lived to be 100 years old. A side note, at about the age of 18 and even younger, I was rodeoing. I rode mostly the buck and stock, bareback, saddle bronc, and bulls, but didn't do much of that after I was married. Joe Southwick, a nephew of Uncle Bill and brother of Uncle Jack, got me to go to California to work in the sawmill. Susie was 2 years old when we moved our family to California in 1947. Jim was born on July 28th. We lived in Branscombe at the Southwick sawmill. It was a pretty nice place. Across from the cookhouse there was a running shower and toilet. The sawmill was operated and powered by a steam engine. During this time, Bill Chadwick showed me a lot of techniques for working with leather. He was a real artist, with rawhide and ropes, and a good friend. I wish I would have had more interest in that at that time, and picked up more of his talents. He lived to be nearly 100, and was another old pal, much more senior in eye than age. Later, my two youngest children were born in Willits, Howard and Julia, making 6 children. Ruth and I were divorced in 1962. I later married Charlotte Brown. We lived in Utah for some time and later moved back to Rio Vista, California in 1982.